When I was younger, I remember watching Halloween that was released in 1978. I always loved this movie, even when I was terrified of it. It always made me think that the boogeyman was in my closet, or making me paranoid that someone was in the room with me in the darkness, or someone stalking me outside of my window. Watching this movie and similar ones scared me. Years later, I decided to watch it again, and it made me feel the same way as I felt as a child. And yet, it made me love this movie for those reasons. It made me paranoid and made me scared about someone I don't know watching me, and evil finding its way in your most vulnerable place, that being your own home. I want to analyze this movie, and I want to see how it makes me scared of the dark and how it feels real. Spoiler, if you haven't seen this movie, I suggest watching it first and then coming back to this video. There's since I'm talking about the whole story, so just a heads up there. Alright, now back into the video. In the beginning of the movie, we're met with the Halloween theme, with the innocent jack-o'-lantern for Halloween. As the credits roll, the jack-o'-lantern gets shrouded in more and more darkness until it only shows the eyes and nose. And one of the eyes looking a lot like a face. The nose more like that's holding a knife than an actual nose. You wouldn't notice this on your first viewing, but it's somehow foreshadowing the events that would happen later in the film, and later would foreshadow what Michael as a character is as a whole. We cut to a scene where Michael walks up to his house, sees his sister Judith and her boyfriend walk upstairs and hanging out, and as they turn off the lights, he goes to the back door and grabs a kitchen knife. And as he was about to go upstairs, his sister's boyfriend walks down and leaves the house and somehow doesn't see Michael standing there in the darkness. And as he goes upstairs, he enters his sister's room. He then murders her on the spot and then walks outside and finds his parents there, questioning what just happened. And then next, on the scene, as the scene pans out, and then cuts to the next. On October 31st, 1978, on the day of Halloween, Samuel Lewis, Michael Myers' therapist, and a nurse drive to the clinic where Michael is being held. Lewis saying that it's been like 15 years now and Michael is old enough to go to trial. Another detail to where Lewis refers to Myers as it rather than him. They later find out that the asylum patients were out roaming as Lewis leaves the car to call the phone about this. Michael breaks through the car window and drives off, and now Lewis is panicking and fearing that he escaped, and now referring to him as the evil. I feel like these two scenes build him up as something very wrong with him, like referring to him as evil, him outright killing his sister, and Lewis seeing him as evil in the body of a man. These scenes set him up as intimidating and the man with malicious intentions. We then cut to Haddonfield, Laurie Strode talking to her father and them selling the Myers house. She then reveals that she's a babysitter and talks to Tommy, the child she's looking after. And they talk about the horrible thing that happened in the Myers house 15 years ago. She then later drops off the keys to the Myers house, and she doesn't even see Myers was right in front of her in the door window, as he stalks Laurie and follows her outside. We then cut to Lewis saying that no one believed him about Myers, and the person he's talking to questioning how he even knew how to drive, saying that maybe he was taught lessons. We then cut to Laurie in the class seeing Myers stalking her through the window and her questioning what that's about, And later scene where kids bully Tommy about the boogeyman getting him, and cut to Myers stalking Tommy as well, and later drives off. Almost like it's his POV, and the camera does everything it can to hide his face. We then cut back to Lewis calling the police in Haddonfield, warning them about Myers. They don't believe him, and Lewis finds the abandoned truck with the asylum gown and the Red Rabbit card that was there. And later, Lewis drives to Haddonfield, and the camera panning to the corpse with the stolen clothes. We cut back to Lori and her friends as we find out that he's stalking as he drives by, standing next to the bush and stalking her through the window upstairs in her room. What also occurred to me while watching this is that Haddonfield itself feels off on its own. Even with no threats on screen, my mind is making me think that Myers is behind something and stalking Lori, or something else in the shadows with the background. Even when it's sunlight and it's a somewhat safe environment, it still feels like there's something in the background and watching Lori. We then find out later that someone went to the cemetery and stole Judith's tombstone. And then later we find out that someone broke into the hardware store, stole a couple of masks, some rope, and a couple of knives. Huh. I wonder if that's important. Anyways, later on, Lewis and the sheriff go into the abandoned Myers house, and then Lewis keeps referring to him as an evil when they bring up the dead dog. Later he says this and gives more insight into the mind of Myers, or so we think.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
We then cut to Annie, babysitting across the street, Lori's friend, and the dog suddenly barks at someone outside. She then lets the dog out, and, well, you can guess what happens. And later, an interesting thing that happened is that I saw Annie takes the kid she babysits and asks Lori to watch her while she goes out with her boyfriend. When she gets to her car, the door is locked. When she goes to get the key, but when she got back, they're unlocked. Without her unlocking them, and she got into the car, and guess what happened? I always wondered, this scene, how Micheal managed to get into the car without making any noise at all. I legitimately don't know how that would happen. Later on, we cut back to Lewis and had something very interesting to say about more red flags about Micheal.
Jesus. Are you all right? Yeah. Nothing's going on except kids playing pranks, trick-or-treating, parking, getting high. I have the feeling that you're way off on this.
You have the wrong feeling.
Well, you're not doing very much to prove me wrong.
What more do you need?
Well, it's going to take more than fancy talk to keep me up all night crawling around these bushes.
I watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient, waiting for some secret, silent alarm to trigger him off. Death has come to your little town, Sheriff. You can either ignore it, or you can help me to stop it.
More fancy talk. Doctor, do you know what Haddonfield is? Families, children, all lined up in rows up and down these streets. You're telling me they're lined up for a slaughterhouse?
They could be.
All right, I'll stay with you tonight. Just in the chance that you're right. And if you are right, damn you for letting him go.
Later, Michael kills off Bob and kind of looks at him like it's art. And he soon kills Linda while on the phone with Lori, prompting her to investigate. And this is the climax. This is what the movie has been building up to. Lori goes into the house upstairs and is horrified, seeing Annie almost like a shrine to his first kill and her other friends. And as Lori's mourning, it strikes. She runs out of the house back to Tommy's house. She then defends them, and then she killed him, or so she thought. She hides in the closet, poking at him when he tries to get in and stabs him. And then in the moment of relief, she's safe, right? She pulls off the mask, then Lewis shoots him, and then he falls in the balcony and presumably dies. In conclusion to this video, this movie built up its horror by building up Myers as a major threat and makes everywhere in Haddonfield unsafe. And even in the most vulnerable place, your own home is dangerous. And trying to find the shape on screen, questioning in the background that if it's Myers or just a set piece or something else. And when you think you are safe, and even worse, when you think no one is there and you don't look everywhere, that's when it will get you. Michael Myers. The shape. The build-up to the climax, where the shrine is a piece of art to him. He not showing any remorse. Him not making a single expression in the movie and hiding his face, and leaves us questioning his intentions to this day. And no matter how many times we think we killed it, it will always find a way to get you. The boogeyman will always hide in the shadows, stalking you as you least expect it, and catches you off guard when you think you are safe. After all, you can't kill the boogeyman. I've made this video because I wanted to talk about one of my favorite horror movies, and this will always be one of my favorites, if not my number one favorite. Myers is such a horror icon, making Halloween a simple but effective masterpiece. And one of the reasons why I got into Dead by Daylight and other horror media. And thank you everyone who has supported me this far. Videos that I've put up have been getting a lot of views recently. I'm very glad for that. Thank you all. Hopefully we'll keep this up. And while I love watching this movie, and will continue to, I'm going to wait for October and actually start on Halloween. Any minute now. What the fuck is taking so long?